We are live. Welcome, everybody.
Hello, hello. We're all glad you're here for the DivorceTown Help and Hope webinar today, and happy to have Tracy Ann Moore-Grant as our moderator. She's our guest moderator from the Amicable Divorce Network. And those of you who know me, I'm Lisa Decker with DivorceTown and Divorce Money Matters. And so I am a panelist today. I'm going to turn this over to Tracy Ann and let her start us off.
Great. Thank you, Lisa. And welcome, everybody. Whether you're watching us live or watching the recording later, we're glad that you're here. Welcome to the DivorceTown USA webinar, Divorce Financial Fundamentals. I'm Tracy Ann Moore-Grant, and I'm the founder of Georgia's Amicable Divorce Network. I'm also an attorney, a mediator, an arbitrator, guardian ad litem with the law firm of Patterson Moore Butler, located in Forsyth County, Georgia. And I'm happy to host this today so that Lisa can share her expertise during our presentation. All of our panelists today are members of DivorceTown USA, and including myself, and everyone can be found at www.divorcetownusa.com if you have more information or like to seek more about any of our professionals, how to reach out to them, and how to get their help. We're really happy that everybody could join us today, and we look forward to hearing from our financial experts. They're going to be walking us through this important aspect of divorce, talking about what's required before, during, and after the divorce process. We encourage you to please leave your questions in the chat feature that's part of our seminar today. And as we go along, we'll monitor those and make sure that we get your questions answered. You can leave your questions publicly or privately, whichever you prefer. And at the end of the presentation, we'll spend a few minutes addressing the questions and concerns at the conclusion of each presenter. So we're going to go ahead and get started today with our first presenter, and that's Angie Rykop of Financial Care Providers. Angie, I'm proud to say, is a friend and a colleague. She has 28 years of experience as an advisor in the Atlanta area. She's a fee-based chartered financial advisor and certified financial planner. She understands the divorce process, the finances, the taxes, and the estate issues. She can help both parties understand and handle assets to minimize conflict and turmoil during the divorce. She also supports attorneys in designing settlements and clear end dates of separation of assets. Angie's topic today will be prepare your finances for divorce, and she'll discuss important financial steps that you should take before you start the process. So I'm going to turn it over to Angie.
Hello, I'm Angie Rykop. I am a certified financial planner. Trying to see if my slides are showing yet. I don't know if I have a knot in my stomach because I'm starting the presentation, or I have a knot in my stomach because as you start to take the first steps to actually getting a divorce, wow, that's a hard thing. And it's hard to admit that this is something we're actually going to step into, and this is what we're actually going to do. But starting something like this with blinders on is not good for either party or the children involved in this situation. So going ahead, getting the blinders off and being very realistic all throughout this process is extremely important to keeping the situation amicable and coming to a clear and concise end. The first thing I really think everyone should do is seriously just sit down and look at what each party is going to need for the first 6 months of this divorce process. It's almost always the case that couples do not know what 100% of the expenses are. You don't think about things like property taxes. Are they included in your mortgage? Are they not? What happened? Go back and look at your expenses last year at this time. Are there camp enrollments for your kids? If you have a business owner, it gets especially dicey. Do you have estimated taxes to pay, business licenses, and those types of issues going on? As a business owner myself, and an advisor to many owners, that can throw a lot of things sideways. And I want you to keep in mind that when people get pressed against the wall is when they strike out and they get ugly. Part of having an amicable divorce is trying to keep everyone taken care of. We don't want to put anybody in a tight situation. We don't want to see kids go without, and trying to keep this as nice as possible so we can get to a clean end. Look at your business licenses. Look at your animal expenses. A lot of people don't think about the pets, and if they've got things coming up, what kind of home repairs are going to be needed? Your house might get sold in this situation, and no one wants to be stuck not anticipating a big repair bill. Additional counseling might be needed, car insurance, and what are the other needs specific to your family? Sitting down and getting this drafted out so that you can allocate the assets, know what you need, know what your divorcing partner needs, and get everybody taken care of. What kind of information needs to be gathered? Loan documents and trust agreements. A lot of people have got slews of information and they're not really definitely sure about how properties are taxed, what exactly is going on with their payroll statement, benefit booklets, who has what to offer. You may think your husband can put the kids on the insurance. Maybe he can, maybe he cannot. Where are bank accounts and life insurance policies? I have been working in the financial planning area for 28 years, and life insurance is one of the areas that I see most mistakes made. If you do have a life insurance policy to help cover your spouse, one person, I'll take the female role since I'm a lady, needs to own it. The insured needs to be your divorcing husband, and you need to be the beneficiary. If you have the owner and the insured of a policy, after the divorce, they can change that policy beneficiary without notifying you, even though you've asked for them to. To make sure that doesn't happen, go ahead and get those things set up. Different properties that might be switching between spouses. There is unlimited gifting between spouses. So one of the things you would like to do is make sure that you do this before the divorce is final. Several attorneys have told me that with all the right papers, you can switch per the divorce decree, but the administrative people handling these kinds of switches may not be familiar, may not know what information to gather, and it may make things very hard. So before you actually get to your settlement date, please make sure that any gifting or any title changes that need to be made are made on your properties. Take into account things like long-term care policies. You may not think about that. Health insurance, if it's privately owned. What is going on with your wills? If you will realize that if you get a divorce, that is an event that constitutes, it nullifies your will. So if your will prior to a divorce was set up a certain way, once your divorce is settled, you no longer have that will in place. If you passed away, you would die intestate, and the state of Georgia would decide how your assets and all are distributed. So probably before your settlement date, you may want to go ahead and meet with an estate planning attorney and draft your draft your wills. So after your divorce settles, you can go ahead, sign those, and get them in place quite quickly. Make sure you get statements to all kinds of things like your 401k, any brokerage accounts, any IRAs and Roth IRAs, and be sure that you realize what is an IRA, what is a Roth IRA, how these things are titled, so they can be divided with respect to the tax situation. Go ahead and look, maybe go ahead and budget in some appraisals for things like your home, any real estate items that you own, vehicles, mortgages, loan statements. Those kinds of things are very important. And when you're in an emotional state, it's kind of hard to be definite about the details. Protecting the value of equity assets. As an investor, I get asked about this an awful lot. We had a big deal last year, 2020. It was in March, and it was called the start of a pandemic, and the stock market took a tremendous dive. What was going on with your accounts? If you're in the middle of a divorce, have you set up some proper protocols to make sure that when the market drops, your individual stock value is protected for both people involved in the divorce. One of the things I use is stop loss orders and trailing stop loss orders. If you own stock, we're here in Atlanta, so let's just call it Coca-Cola. If you own stock in Coke, you may want to put a trailing stop loss order and say sell if it goes down 10% to help protect the values. Have you thought about that mutual funds have no stop loss options? So if you are currently invested in mutual funds, you really can't do that. You may want to consider moving your assets to a conservative position and take into consideration if it's going to trigger a tax event. And when you're dividing assets, whether are you dividing it by money? Are you taking a $20,000 account and dividing it to $10,000 each? Or are you dividing shares of stock and having it moved assets in kind? One of the most contentious things I find out in my experience is when assets are due after the settlement. I see people, they're waiting to get some money. The settlement didn't come as soon as they expected. And they're sitting there going, but I need money now. I thought it was going to settle 2 months ago and I haven't gotten it. Now that we've settled, when do I get the asset? One of the things about making this clear kind of helps get things divided and helps that when you finally make it to that settlement date, that assets get divided in the way you're intended, and it helps bring some of the anxiety down in the situation. My policy is always be kind. You just don't need to stir up things. You've already decided that this is done and closure is what you need. Be very firm. Don't leave everything open to negotiation or you're going to be negotiating everything. And just be finished. Get this thing complete and move forward. At Financial Care Providers, I do sincerely care about your future, and making this as smooth as possible and getting you out the door so that everyone can go on and live good lives is what my objective is. My name is Angie Rakeup, and I take a lot of care to make sure that I take care of the wealth and the well-being of my clients. And I like using the experience to help benefit people and make this as smooth as possible. No one got married thinking that they were going to have a divorce, and no one wanted this outcome. So we want to make this as kind and as professional as possible. If you have any questions, please put them in your slides in the chat area, and we'll be happy to address them as a panel after the full presentation is over. But thank you guys very much for your attention. And if you have any questions, you're always welcome to give me a call, send me an email, and your first consultation is always complimentary.
Thank you, Angie. That was great and really helpful. I appreciate it. So we're going to be moving on to our next presenter. Lisa Decker, founder of DivorceTown USA, is a certified divorce financial analyst and a real estate collaboration specialist in divorce. She's the CEO and founder of Divorce Money Matters and DivorceTown USA, the sponsor of today's webinar. She is also the author of the book, How to Divorce Your Spouse, Not Your Money, which is available on Amazon. Lisa devotes herself to divorce financial planning services for her clients across the country with coaching, consulting, and full analysis options done on a flat fee basis. In her practice, she has seen it all, the good, the bad, and the unfortunately, the ugly in divorce situations. Lisa strives to help her clients find smarter solutions for their family, finances, and their future. Lisa will be speaking with us today on the topic, Mind Your Money Matter During Divorce, and will highlight specific terms and experts that are needed for this crucial stage of the process. Lisa?
Thank you so much, Tracy. Appreciate that. Okay, let's bring this up. All right. So we're going to talk a lot about the dollars and cents of getting divorced and minding your money matters through that. So if your I do's become I don'ts, The first thing I'd like to suggest is that you learn about your divorce options, because how you get divorced, how you start your divorce is likely how you're going to end it. And there are much better ways to get divorced if you and your spouse can agree to it, that are civilly based, such as amicable divorce that Tracy Ann is the founder of here. There's also collaborative and cooperative divorce options in some places of the country. Mediation is another peaceful way to get divorced, and divorce financial planning, where you can work with a neutral party to help you get an assessment of what you own, what you owe, and what may be owed to you, and some ways to go about dividing that. And then you can also do a combination of these. So there's no one way to go about this. Most of us know about traditional litigation, right? The War of the Roses. You think about getting divorced and putting on the gloves and lawyering up and duking it out. But I want to tell you that through the roadmap, excuse me, that I developed initially, I tell folks, you know, there's a side of DivorceTown called Peaceful Place and Savings Lane. These other options that I've showed you here can keep you in that part of town. But if you or your spouse doesn't understand what you're getting into and decides to take the traditional litigated route, it could lead to Bigger Bucks Boulevard and Duke It Out Drive, and possibly ending up in front of a judge, letting a stranger decide your outcome. And so that's the much more costly way to go. So first start out with learning your options and deciding what is the best for you and your spouse. Your core divorce team, and divorce does take a team. There's no one of us among all the experts on this call that can do this alone. I always ask clients to start with a therapist. We need you to be working with someone who can give you tips and tools to have a clear mindset to make wise decisions in this process. And of course, you need a legal expert to help you with your legal questions, to draft your documents, to get you through some of the negotiations that you may not be able to work out otherwise. And depending on the process, you may start with an attorney or you may start somewhere else, but this is definitely a team member that you need. And an expert in the finances of divorce. You definitely want to work with someone who has been in the divorce arena working with clients. It's very different than just traditional financial planning. That's why I invited the experts that I did here today, because we all understand that there's much deeper level of financial information and experience needed than traditional financial planning. And so why do you need a divorce financial expert? Well, some of the things that we seek to do are to equitably divide assets and debts, to assess income and expenses for support issues like child support and alimony. Also to help you divorce your spouse and your house, right? You want to make sure that you're looking at all of the intricacies of divorce and real estate. Avoiding costly credit issues. I have seen so many problems happen for folks here. Pointing out potential tax problems, absolutely. Promoting protection of income streams. You know, Angie talked about life insurance. There's also disability insurance. What if something happens to the payor and you are expecting money to come and they can't do it? They have become sick or they have passed away. So how do we promote that protection? And also analyzing complex executive compensation and pension plans, because there are a lot of complexities here. And so we do all of this and so much more. Working with your divorce financial planning expert depends on your divorce situation, so that we can be hired individually as an advocate for you. We can be hired by a couple, and that would be in a financial neutral role. So we're a neutral party in the middle, helping both parties to understand what the figures are and how to best effectuate an equitable settlement. We can work through a mediator, we can work in the collaborative and the cooperative process, and we can work through an attorney in a privileged manner where our work product is confidential. So again, it's all going to depend on the type of divorce that you have and what your needs are. When we talk about getting financially focused, this is so important because you're going to save a lot of money. you're going to save time, and you're going to save tremendous amount of angst if you can get yourself together and work with your financial professional in this way. So if you're a client, your first job is going to be to start gathering the information. What do you have that you need to have brought into the divorce financial arena that needs to be assessed? Sorting that so that it's in a organized way, and getting that to your financial professionals so that they have the time to do a proper job for you is most important. And your other role in all of this is to remember that, you know, this is a compromise. You may not get everything that you're seeking here. Understanding where to fight for things and where to let go is vitally important. Your CDFA, or your financial expert's role, will be to analyze, strategize, maximize all of that information for you in the process. And then once you've come to settlement, to help you with finalizing the details. And preparing for analysis. Angie went over a lot of these, so I'm not again, but again, I just wanted to include this list because you can see that there's so much involved in our financial lives that we may not remember to dig into. So there's some important information that you'll want to gather when you get started. Here's some common, costly, and sometimes, unfortunately, permanent mistakes. You know, you should not rely on your attorney to know all the financial aspects. Tracy Ann and I have had jokes about this, and I know a lot of other attorneys who say that they went to law school because they didn't like math. And, you know, they're the legal experts. I am nowhere versed to talk about the legal aspects than sometimes the attorneys are to speak about the financials. And that's why when you combine both expertises, you get a better outcome here. So when it's gone beyond your attorney's areas of expertise, it's time to bring in a financial advisor who understands divorce and listen to your attorney if they are advising you to do that. Real estate is another area where we see so many mistakes made. You have quitclaim deeds and mortgage liability. Maybe there's repairs that need to be done. If you're going to keep the house, do you want to be stuck with all the repairs on your own? There will be commissions to be shared if you sell at the same time. If not, and you maybe a year or two down the line realize this house is more than I can maintain or more than I can pay for, then you're going to end up shouldering all of those commissions on your own. So these are things that we want to assess up front. And debt issues is another common area. People call me all the time after their divorce. They'll call me for a consult, not clients of mine, but others, who will say, my spouse was ordered to pay this credit card or my car loan or the house mortgage, and they're not doing that. And, you know, we've got this joint debt and now they're not paying it and my credit is suffering. Well, be advised here that your creditors are not bound to the terms of your settlement agreement. So no matter what your divorce decree says, if your name is attached to that loan or that liability, you will still be held liable for it. So it's very important that those things get severed. You divorce your spouse and your joint debts too. Some wise ways to make divorce decisions. Listen, weigh the cost of fighting versus the benefit of the asset. We've seen people fight over furnishings that they could have bought all new furniture for the cost of what they paid in those negotiations. Set your strategies, but remember to give to get. I hate to say it, but divorce is sometimes a game, and you've got to play the rules. It's kind of like chess, you know, what's my next move? And so have some room for compromise there. Don't make financial decisions based on emotional reactions. That's a setup for failure. And I once heard a wise judge say, do you want to fund your retirement or your attorney's retirement or your financial advisor's retirement? Remember, what is the cost of fighting versus what you're going to get? Of course, go for what you're entitled to. Have a fair and equitable settlement, but don't go for something that is extreme, especially when you have multiple people telling you that that is not going to happen. I have seen people get locked into things and then not get what they wanted anyway. many times going back to what was offered to them in the beginning, but after spending tens of thousands of dollars. By the way, the average divorce in America is typically between $15,000 to $25,000 per spouse in legal fees. And if you go to court, far beyond that. So understand what you're getting into up front. That's why I love being a part of the Amicable Divorce Network. I want Tracy to take a few minutes before we leave to talk a little bit about that, because there are far better ways, as I mentioned. You can have a sane, savvy, money-saving divorce by being a proactive partner, not a passive participant. Whether it's your health or your wealth, this is a time when you want to be involved. You don't want to allow other people to be making decisions for you that you don't understand. If you don't understand, stop, ask questions, delve deeper. This is something you're going to live with for the rest of your life. You also don't want to make decisions under stress or duress. I get a lot of people who call me 3 days before their mediation I've never talked to before and say, "Can you help me?" Well, at that point, there's really not enough time to dig into the financials to help people understand what's a good settlement offer and what's not, and what's in their best interest. So leave yourself enough time. Don't put your financial partners under stress as well, so that you get the best outcome. And read and understand your divorce terms before you sign on the bottom line. Critical. It's important that what you agreed to makes it to the language of your settlement agreement, because that's the proof there. If it doesn't make it in the language of your settlement agreement, it doesn't matter what else you negotiated. And so that's it for today. I thank you for coming here and for listening, and I'm looking forward to hearing more from my colleagues. And again, I'm Lisa Decker. I'm the CEO and founder of DivorceMoneyMatters.com, where I help couples and individuals with their money matters. And I'm the founder of DivorceTown USA, this wonderful community that we have of like-minded professionals helping people. And if you want more information, please feel free to gather our divorce financial fitness kit at DivorceMoneyMatters.com. We've got a great list of all kinds of things, those assets and debts and all of that. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Lisa. We're going to move right along to our last presenter today. Peter Weinbaum is a certified financial planner and certified divorce financial analyst with Ameriprise Financial, and has been working with individuals since 2003, helping them with their financial planning, investments, insurance, both before and after divorce planning. Peter has a passion for helping people figure out how to survive and thrive post-divorce through comprehensive financial planning while increasing and preserving their wealth. Peter is originally from Chicago, got his MBA at the University of Illinois, and has an executive certification from the University of Pennsylvania Wharton School for Retirement Planning. He moved to Atlanta in 1998 and has 2 teenage kids getting ready for college. One fun fact about Peter is he's traveled to 58 countries and has lived in 7. Peter will talk with us today about post-divorce financial planning. Peter?
Hi, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me. Peter Weinbaum, I work for Ameriprise Financial, and I am going to do the after divorce part of this presentation, and appreciate Lisa and Angie and Marcella and everybody with the overall presentation.
Excuse me, Peter.
Yeah.
Can you pop your camera on if you get a chance?
Oh, sure, of course. Can you see me now?
That's much better.
Okay. Sorry, everybody. So why don't we go ahead and get started? So I focus on during the divorce, where you're doing the divorce financial planning, and then being a certified financial planner afterwards as well. All right, so let me hit next. So really what this is all about is wanting you to think about what your situation is, how you want to live today, how you want to live tomorrow. I really encourage you to think about what you want to do next and what your financial goals are and what your financial concerns are. And so, after being divorced, you have a whole new set of things to be thinking about. Okay, so the goals for today in our 7 to 10 minutes that I'm going to talk is really gaining a little bit more confidence in your financial future through preparation and understand where you have control. Obviously, for all of us, you worry about what you can control and influence, and you don't worry about what you can't. And hopefully that's the case. A lot of times it's not, but that's what we all try to do. So your new future starts now. This is stage 2. Once you've gone through the process of getting divorced and the emotional and the financial decisions that have happened, you really have to decide, how am I going to plan going forward? And it all starts with, what do I want? And you're probably not going to know the specifics about what you want, but at least the general outline. You should have at least a decent idea, and start writing that down about what you think you might want. Maybe you want to start a new job, or you want to travel more, or whatever it is. Start writing those things down so you can start doing the planning, and then the financials can go along with whatever you're planning to do. So getting into that, which is the game plan, with the general outline, then we start getting into the more specifics about how to achieve your goal from there. So we're going to talk about 6 keys to financial success post-divorce. It's going to deal with cash flow. It's going to deal with investments and budgeting, and we'll go through each of the different options here in a second. And I'm just going to quickly go through these slides because this presentation is usually for more than 7 to 10 minutes. So I hope you don't mind me going more quickly. So the first step is your cash flow. It's your spending habits. How much money are you spending for your daily life? Now, you've had to probably do this, or you are doing this right now, hopefully, while you're getting divorced. If, how much am I spending in each of the different categories? And then, how is it going to be different when I'm done? And then how is it going to be different when I retire? So you've got committed versus discretionary expenses. So your committed ones are things like your mortgage, for example, maybe your car payment. Your discretionary expenses could be your $1,000 a month lottery tickets that you have to do. I'm just kind of kidding about that, but it could be your going out for dinners, things that you don't have to do, but that you do, that are important to you. Do you know if you're getting ahead, breaking even, or coming short? So important to know that. A lot of us don't know that. And it can be done easily through there's a lot of software out there where you can just or print out an Excel spreadsheet and start writing that stuff down. You won't do it overnight, but over a week or two, you can really get a good sense of where you think you're going to be. Where your debt's going to be paid off, this is where a lot of people have credit cards. And unfortunately, unless you have some of those intro rates, they could be 15, 20, 25%. Hard to hit a lot of your retirement goals with larger credit cards. And it happens. So part of your planning is going to be how we're going to pay that off. Do you anticipate any big expenses coming up? Obviously, now that you're newly divorced, things happen because your goals are different now. And then do you have an emergency fund? Recommend somewhere between 3 and 6 months of your monthly spending that you have in a bank account or something that's liquid. So talking about retirement projections. So as a financial planner, I'm always trying to focus on getting you to 75% success rate as far as 1,000 different trials with all the investments that you're doing, with all the retirement planning, that you make sure that when you hit your 65 or 70 or whenever you decide that you want to retire, or maybe you are retired, that you're going to hit all your goals. So there's a lot of process. You can do it yourself. You can work with a planner, but you want to make sure now that you're in a new life that you really know where you're going and how you want to get there. For investments, there's a lot of different kinds of investments that are out there. You might be in CDs because, hey, it's safe, or you might be in fixed income, which are making 4 to 6%, or you might be in some equity. Your spouse might have been the person that was managing all these different investments, and you're brand new at this, right? Which is a lot of people. And don't worry about that. It's taking small steps going forward to be able to manage your investments. You can always get help, again, with a financial advisor if you like. But it's a process. So just be patient with yourself. You have to know what your risk tolerance is. Are you conservative? Are you moderate? Are you aggressive? What are you? So that, for example, there's something called the rule of 72, where if you get an 8% rate of return, which is a moderate risk, you should double your money every 9 years. So 9 divided by 8, 72 divided by 8 is 9. So those kinds of numbers and planning can help you get to where you want to go. So you want to educate yourself, understand your financial options, and ask if you need help. Your taxes. So all of a sudden, you're going to need, assuming you're working with an employer, that you're going to need to change your tax status because you're no longer married filing jointly or separately. Now you're either a head of household or you're an individual. And so your tax rates are going to be a little bit different once you do that. And then it's understanding how the tax situations work in the different kinds of accounts that you have. Your individual accounts, your 401ks, where, hey, I put $10,000 in there, I reduced my taxes by $10,000, money grows tax deferred, and you take the money out taxed once you are in retirement. Or the Roth, which has been talked about before, where you're never taxed again on that. So there's always an advantage. And that's really just working out with your planner as far as what's the best thing to do. So we've talked a little bit. I know Lisa mentioned, Angie mentioned it as well when we're talking about your insurance plan. So I do want you to focus on your life, and as Angie mentioned, as far as making sure with your alimony, for example, let's just say there's a 10-year alimony plan. You want to make sure that if the spouse dies, that you have insurance on that spouse, so that it covers that 10 years of insurance, so that your lifestyle isn't changed. And that's something that can easily be set up as you as the owner. Disability is 6 times more likely that happens than the life insurance that you die. So disability is really important. It's not just having a disability insurance through work, which is important, but also potentially having it yourself. And then long-term care. This is about, and people think of this as old age disease when you're 80 years old. It's not covered by healthcare. So usually people start thinking about this around 62 years old. But it is, hey, I can't go from the chair to the bed or going to the bathroom or other things that, it will take care so you don't run through your assets too quickly. Typically, the auto and the home are taken care of when you do get divorced, or you have at least a good idea of it. Health insurance may change, and there's some options there. And then your estate plan, which we've, as a group, talked a little bit about. You may need to create your new will. You're still alive, but maybe you're incapacitated in some way. New powers of attorney, which are like financial, maybe Alzheimer's. You can't really make those decisions yourself, or healthcare, creating a living will. Really important to update all your beneficiaries, because I've known many stories where the spouse is still, the ex-spouse is the beneficiary, and you don't want that to happen. Also be concerned about minors being the beneficiaries as well, because that's easy, especially if you have younger kids. Because who's the guardian, potentially if something happens to you, and it could be the ex. And then also consider the use of trusts, both revocable and irrevocable. And so kind of wrapping this up, you want to start off with creating a plan, and you're going to try to stick to the plan as much as you can. Work with someone if it makes sense. Disregard distractions. Markets are going to go up and down and sideways, and sometimes it's going to be disconcerting, sometimes it's going to be great. And then every 6 months to a year, you want to update your plan. And so that will help you get to exactly where you need to go. And I believe that wraps up my presentation. So again, it's Peter Weinbaum. I work for Ameriprise. You can look at me. I'm in Duluth, Georgia, online and through DivorceTown USA. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Peter. That was great. I hope that people take the advice that you hear today from the professionals. I can tell you as an attorney, I've been practicing for about 18 years. This is good advice that you have received. People often are hesitant to really take the time to do this type of work for themselves financially before, during, and after divorce, but it really is quite invaluable. So if our panelists today want to turn their cameras back on, we do have some questions for some of our presenters today. So let me see. Someone asked, in one of the slides you mentioned Social Security. Would that be a personal asset that's not supposed to be divided? Lisa, you're
muted, Lisa.
There you go.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I don't mean to sound like a commercial. I will say that Social Security is not really an asset per se. It's a benefit that those who have paid enough credit hours into are eligible for. And in divorce, if you have been married at least 10 years, you will be entitled to your own benefit or 50% of your spouse's. Now, let me clarify that by saying that it doesn't mean your spouse loses 50% of their benefit. That's just the numbers that will be compared. Your benefit, your spouse's benefit, which one is greater, and that's the benefit that you can take. So there's some complicating factors to that if you've gotten remarried in the meantime. If you're not over the age of 60, then there may be some other things that come into play. If you've been married more than once and you have multiple spouses that you've been married to for at least 10 years, then you may have a choice among them. So this is something you definitely want to talk with a professional who understands these matters about.
Hey, just to point out too, even though the Social Security itself may not, there are rules afterwards where you may be able to increase your Social Security distribution. That's true, what Lisa was saying. I'll support that. But it's also to be taken into consideration with the other assets and the other cash flows in the divorce settlement. So even though you might not be able to split it per se, it may give you more or less when you're looking at the other cash flows and you're splitting up and trying to get equalized income flow.
I muted you, Tracy, sorry. Tracy, you're muted, sorry.
I don't know what happened. Another question here. What if neither party has any assets and can barely afford to get divorced? Lisa would have nothing to do. You wouldn't need Lisa to tell you that you don't have any assets to divide. So I think some of the feedback today is for some of those, complicated assets, pensions, tax consequences, things of that nature. But if you, don't have complicated assets, you can, probably sit down and work out a resolution rather quickly. Hopefully, you may have minor children, of course, that may have some negotiation or some things that need to be dealt with in regards to that. But if you don't have any assets for Lisa and the other financial professionals to study, then you wouldn't need them. I think that's easy enough, but you could potentially get an uncontested divorce. I can touch on that in just a minute. A question I think was for Lisa here. How far in advance of a mediation should you, someone like Lisa, be involved? And maybe better stated, what's the minimum amount of time that you would need to help someone prepare for a mediation?
You're muted, sorry.
All right. We had some feedback going on, so I muted myself to try and mitigate that. I would say for anybody getting divorced, starting the process early, as I mentioned, and that means gathering all of your documents way in advance, and so that you can get them to any one of us to help you with your divorce financial matters, but at least a minimum of 3 months and maybe longer. And that may be because if you're going through a traditional litigated divorce, you can help from the beginning with the attorney saying, these are the kind of documents that we would prefer to have in divorce through the discovery process. And, sometimes it can take more than one request to get those documents. Now, and things may come up that we learn about that we need more information on. So the earlier, the better. Every divorce may take a little bit different in the time frame, but get the financials put in place, organized, sorted to your financial advisor who you're working with as early on as possible, so that you give them enough time to help you properly. You give your attorney enough time to request more documentation, whatever the case may be. Angie and Peter, do you have anything else you want to add to that?
Just being honest and getting things out on the table and being clear about what your intent is to divide things out evenly, and you're not trying to, financially strangle your ex will make this divorce process go a lot easier. And being honest with yourself that money isn't going to get created. I mean, if you're married now, you have 2 kids, and a big problem is the fact that you can't meet the bills. Money isn't going to be created by divorcing so that you can have the lifestyle that you want. This is really a time to be a grown-up, to look at the numbers and be honest with yourself and be honest with your exiting spouse, and end this as peacefully and making good terms so that everyone can have a good life, especially if you have children involved.
Thank you. How about you, Peter? Did you want to add?
I think you both answered it very well. So nothing else to add.
So you can see the agreement there, folks. Come from a good mindset and do it early.
A question: is disability income considered part of the common property? The terminology common property makes me feel like this might not be a Georgia question. So I'm a little hesitant to jump in there, but disability income in general.
Yeah,
So,
go ahead, Peter. Go ahead.
No, so, and maybe I don't have the answer, but there's probably no cash value to the disability income insurance right now. So I don't know that it might be something that would be a good idea to take out. Before or after, but I don't know how you would split that. Angie, do you have any other thoughts on that?
No, I don't. Disability ownership is owned by the one individual that it insures. It's not a couple's plan or a joint plan. Most disability I come in contact with is group. And it can be used in the analysis, but not actually split between a receiving individual and a spouse.
But if you were talking about, life insurance, then usually, especially on the permanent policies, there is a cash value to that, and that can be used in part of the equations.
Right.
And also, actually, long-term care too. More and more of these policies are asset-based long-term cares, where they might have $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 of cash value in the policy. It's just, it doesn't usually happen with disability.
Yeah, I think the question was maybe about disability income. And so I think you guys have sort of answered that. If we're talking about Social Security income associated with disability, I can tell you we do use that to calculate child support, whatever sort of income that you get in Georgia. In that way, but I'm not, from what the experts are saying here, it's not an asset that essentially would be divided. So there are a couple of different things could be called disability.
And also, real quickly, it's pretty hard to get Social Security disability. Just understand that you may have to wait 12 months to get it, and it's very hard to get. So don't count on Social Security disability as far as that goes.
Yes. So those are all the questions that I see that are in the chat feature here. If anybody has any last minute questions, please pop them in here. But otherwise, I think that concludes everything that we have for today.
I just want to add one more thing about the long-term care policies. A lot of folks now are buying them at the time of the divorce because you can take a discount for buying them as a couple and then split the policy after. So if you are looking for long-term care policies, it might be a good idea to factor that into your divorce settlement.
That's a good point. And one other thing too, I'm going to add too with the Social Security is, remember, and you may have or may not have been told this before, but once you get divorced, if you were married for more than 10 years, you get to use your own Social Security payment or half of your ex-spouse. It doesn't matter that you're not married anymore. And if you get divorced, and if you get remarried, then you don't have that anymore. And if you get married and divorced and you were married to them twice for 10 years, and you get to choose which one you want to have as far as, so I'm not saying to do that, but anyway, so you do have your spouse's, half of your spouse's Social Security as well, as an option if you were married for 10 years.
Yep.
And Tracy, could you just speak a little bit about Amicable Divorce Network? We had some questions about lower cost divorce, especially for someone that doesn't have a complicated marital estate, and what are some good options for them so they can still get divorced fairly, safely.
Yeah, so the one thing I would say first and foremost is to not try to DIY your own divorce. I would say about 1/3 of my practice is dedicated to people who come to me having done a DIY divorce with these online forms, and then they want me to fix something that often is unfixable. So it's one of those things to please do properly the first time. And the Amicable Divorce Network is designed to get people access to legal professionals who will not increase conflict or cost in the case, but will give you a good legal representation throughout. We have a legal process that is designed to get people divorced outside the court system, and it is catered to each couple or family. So you get the services that you exactly need in your case. There is not extra work that is done. There is not 5 years of documents that are exchanged when they aren't needed. And so with the process that we've designed, it can be a very low asset divorce with no children, and everybody wants access to an attorney to make sure that everything is handled properly, all the way up to a very high asset divorce that involves a business valuation and high assets that we need more time to evaluate and take care of. We are allowed, and our process determines how long it takes, what professionals are involved to get you divorced if you need those professionals. And everybody in the network has to have 5 years of experience in their industry and is vetted for being a low conflict and resolution minded professional, so that people shouldn't have fear that they're going to be taken advantage of by a divorce professional. They're not going to get some huge bill that they didn't anticipate. This professional is not going to be running and filing things in the court system. Everybody is dedicated towards getting people divorced better. And more information is available at www.amicableddivorcenetwork.com. And you can always reach out to me as well. It's Tracy at amicableddivorcenetwork@gmail.com. And I am always happy to answer questions about this, but all of our professionals today are members of Amicable Divorce Network, and I'm really proud to have them in our group and to hear them present today. So everybody here is also dedicated to getting you divorced better.
Well, thank you all so much for being here, Tracy Ann, for being my guest moderator today. Appreciate that. It's always a pleasure to work with you, partner with you to help bring this information to light, and the great professionals that we have in our network together, including Angie and Peter. You both did a great job today. Thank you so much. And I hope for those who are going to hear the replay, feel free to reach out to any of us with your questions afterwards. And we're all here for you, and, do divorce differently, get a better outcome. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.